She walked into the bank with nothing more than a smile and a deposit slip in her hand. To her, it was just another routine errand. But the moment she approached the counter, the atmosphere shifted. The whispers, the raised eyebrows, the smirks, it was all too familiar. They didn't see a customer. They didn't see a young woman with every right to be there. They saw only the color of her skin. What happened next wasn't just humiliating, it was unforgettable. Because within minutes, the same people who mocked her would be left speechless. And the truth she carried would shake the entire room. It was a bright afternoon, the kind of day that made the city hum with life. She had finished her classes early, and with a folder tucked under her arm, she made her way to the bank downtown. Her father had asked her to handle a simple task, deposit a check, nothing complicated, nothing unusual. She had been here before though, not often, and knew the layout well enough. Inside, the air was cool, the smell of polished floors and faint ink lingering. Suits and ties moved briskly across the room while others waited in line, murmuring. Quietly, she joined them, her head held high, a quiet confidence in her step. For her, this wasn't just about completing an errand. It was about responsibility, proving to her father that she could handle things on her own, that she could step into his world and not stumble. But even as she stood there, something felt different. A group of employees near the counter glanced at her and exchanged looks as though her very presence was out of place. She noticed it, but tried to ignore it. After all, she wasn't doing anything wrong. She was just a young woman with a deposit slip and a check, nothing more. Nothing less. What she didn't know was that the simple act of walking up to that counter would ignite an incident that left the entire bank in stunned silence. And the same people who looked down on her would soon regret every dismissive laugh and every mocking word. Her turn came, as she stepped forward with a polite smile. She handed the check across the counter, the kind of check she had seen her father write many times before, large, neatly signed, and perfectly legitimate. The teller, a young man with sharp glasses and an even sharper tone, looked at the paper, then at her, his lips curled into a smirk. "Are you sure this is yours?" he asked, his voice just loud enough for others nearby to hear. Heat rose in her cheeks. She tried to stay calm. "Yes, it's mine to deposit. Here's my ID." She slid it across, but instead of taking it, he leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "We get a lot of people trying to pull stunts like this," he said, his tone dripping with suspicion. "Big checks, fake names, wrong faces." She blinked, stunned. Around her, heads began to turn. Customers in line shifted, pretending not to listen but unable to look away. An older woman behind her gave a soft chuckle, as if amused by the scene. She swallowed hard. "This check is valid. You can verify it." The teller raised his eyebrows, then gestured to another employee. Soon, 2 more staff members came over, each one wearing that same look, the one that said, "You don't belong here." They whispered, glancing at her ID, glancing at the check, glancing back at her. One of them laughed. "You expect us to believe? This check is worth more than what some people make in a year." Her chest tightened, the weight of humiliation pressing down. She could feel the stares digging into her back. It wasn't just disbelief, it was mockery. They weren't questioning the paper in her hand. They were questioning her right to even stand there. The words stung sharper than she expected. "Please," she said softly but firmly. "All I'm asking is that you do your job." But the teller wasn't finished. "You think you can just walk in here with this kind of money and expect us to nod and smile? Do you even know what this bank stands for?" He laughed again, shaking his head. The whispers grew louder. Some customers smirked, others looked away in discomfort. Every second felt like an eternity. Her dignity chipped away piece by piece. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice stayed steady. She remembered her father's words, "Never let them see you break," and so she lifted her chin, holding her ground even as they treated her like a fraud, like a joke. The tension in the room grew thicker. Everyone was waiting to see if she would snap, if she would crumble, or if the staff would finally call security, but none of them expected what she was about to do next. The teller pushed the check back toward her. "We can't process this, not for you." His words were final, laced with smug satisfaction. For a heartbeat, silence filled the bank. Customers leaned in, employees waited. It was the breaking point. She looked down at the check, then back up at him. And for the first time, she smiled, not out of kindness, but out of something deeper. Something stronger. Are you sure about that? She asked softly, confused. The teller frowned. But before he could respond, she reached into her folder and pulled out another document. With calm precision, she laid it on the counter. The bank's official ownership papers. And at the bottom, her father's name. The very man who owned the building, the staff, the very chair the teller sat on. Gasps rippled through the room. The teller's smirk vanished, his face paling as his eyes darted over the signature. Then back at her, she leaned closer, her voice low but steady. The man you just mocked? The man you doubted I was connected to? He owns this bank, every floor, every desk, every paycheck. The weight of her words crashed into the silence like a thunderclap. The employees who laughed minutes ago stood, frozen. Customers shifted uncomfortably, some looking down at their shoes, others staring in disbelief. For the first time, the teller had no words. His arrogance dissolved into stammering silence, and in that moment, power shifted. The young woman who walked in as a target of ridicule now stood as the embodiment of truth they couldn't escape. The manager rushed out, his face flushed, his apologies tumbling over each other as he realized the enormity of what had just unfolded. He offered her a chair, his voice trembling as he promised the transaction would be handled immediately, but she declined. She didn't need their comfort. She had already proven her point. With quiet dignity, she took the papers, slid the check back across the counter, and spoke only once more. Next time, remember, respect isn't optional. Not here, not anywhere. And then she walked out, leaving behind a silence so heavy it felt suffocating. The same people who had laughed just moments ago now avoided each other's eyes, ashamed of what they had witnessed. But for her, the incident wasn't just about depositing a check. It was about something bigger, the way society still judged. Her skin before her worth, her presence before her truth. She knew this wouldn't be the last time she faced it. And she knew many others wouldn't have the same chance to silence the room the way she just had, because for every story like hers, there are countless others where the mockery goes unchallenged, the humiliation unspoken, the injustice left unchecked. The question that lingers is simple, yet powerful. How many more times must this happen before respect is given without question? Her story may have ended in stunned silence, but the echoes of that moment carry far beyond the walls of that bank, and they demand one thing from all of us: to finally see, to finally listen, and to finally change.